Tip of the morning to you, YouTube. It's Tip Tick, and yeah, that's a penis joke. Today I've got a battle versus It's Ian, and the first thing you're probably going to want to notice about his team is that he's got a Weezing. This Pokemon is kind of like a flag to me, like if I see an Electivire or a Melodic on a team, I'm going to assume that this player probably is not all that familiar with the OU environment, but over the course of this match, Ian's going to prove to me that he's got those moves like Jagger, and this Weezing is actually going to put some pressure onto my team, surprisingly. I see that he's got 3 flying types, so I'm going to try to lead with my Landorus and set up Stealth Rocks as early as possible because I know that Dragonite is going to be a threat if I don't get it in check with rocks. So let's go ahead and start the match. I know it's a pretty real threat that he could lead off with his Thundurus and hit me up with the Ice Power. Or Ice Power, Hidden Power Ice, which is exactly what he does. But I'm not all that worried because I've got safe switch-ins to this thing. And so I definitely don't want to lose my Landorus as early in the match. So I'm just going to go ahead and go out into my Sylveon. And he's going to taunt me, which is essentially a free switch-in because I've got no status category moves on my Sylveon. And so he Volt Switches, which is going to do measly amount of damage, and what wants a Hyper Voice? Weezing comes in wanting a Hyper Voice. And it surprised me how much damage this Hyper Voice did. It was like 40%, almost half to this Weezing. And so he hits me with a Clear Smog, which does nothing as expected. And I actually thought this Psyshock was going to do a lot of damage. I was really surprised to see how physically bulky Weezing is. It did less damage than my Hyper Voice. So, but I know from that range, Hyper Voice is just going to get the KO. So he brings in Mawile, and this is still another resisted hit. Going to do just about 50% to this Mawile. Sylveon, I'm telling you, this Pokemon is a complete monster. Mega Evolves, no surprise there. And now he's not prepared for my Hidden Power Ground. But the extra bulk from his Mega Evolution lets him hang on by just a thread. And he gets off a Swords Dance, and right here I know he probably just wants to Sucker Punch before I take him out, but this Quick Attack is, I know I'm faster, so Quick Attack goes first and just knocks it out. Sylveon completely trolling on that Mawile. Then comes Staraptor, and I don't want to take this Brave Bird because that will just completely crush Sylveon. So I go into Landorus to get off the Intimidate, and the Double Edge happens, and I'm surprised it does a lot more damage than I was expecting to after the Intimidate. I wasn't really sure if this was Choice Banded Staraptor or not because I know he's already got a really high attack stat, and that Reckless boosts the power of Double Edge through the roof. But I did not want my Landorus to go down this early in the match, so I'll switch into Ferrothorn on his Weezing switch in. And I know he's probably packing Flamethrower, which is why I go into my Heatran right here to get the Flash Fire boost. And I know Fire Blast, he's probably going to switch into Goodra here, I think. But I don't want this Weezing to keep coming in and forcing out my Ferrothorn, so I'm going to go for the Fire Blast just in case he wants to switch in. And in comes the Drippy Dragon himself. Gonna completely eat up this. That was like 10%, maybe 15% Flash Fire boosted Fire Blast on Goodra. Definitely Assault vested, probably even Specially Defensive invested. So he goes for the Earthquake, not messing around with any threats here, but Rotom is gonna dodge it skillfully. And the Dragon Pulse does pretty much nothing to me, further confirming my suspicion that he's invested in special defense rather than special attack. So I can just stall him out, and through the light screen, he's going to do less damage to me per turn than the burn is doing to him. So this is a really good matchup for me. Personally, I really prefer the offensive Goodra with 252 HP and 252 special attack modest rather than the defensive variant, because he's already got massive special defense with the Self Vest, and that way he can provide some offensive pressure. I switch in my Sylveon, expecting to take a Dragon Pulse, but in comes Dragonite. And here I'm in kind of a bind. I think he's probably got the weakness policy, which is why I don't want to just go straight up for the Hyper Voice. Instead, I switch in my Landorus, knowing full well that he's probably going to Dragon Dance, and so I can nullify this attack boost. And then I'm going to U-turn it back into my Rotom, because I want to sort of scout and see if he's got the leftovers or not. And I'm going to find out here that he does not get any leftovers recovery, confirming my suspicion that it was weakness policy Dragonite. But now his multi-scale is broken, so it's going to be a lot easier to deal with. The problem is going to be playing footsies around this Pokemon to get into a position to actually attack him. Now this is his third Dragon Dance. He got intimidated once, so he's at +2, but the Will-O-Wisp is going to cut his attack in half. So he's back down to dealing neutral damage. He's basically just got a really fast Dragonite with no attack buffs, is essentially what I'm dealing with. He goes for his next Dragon Dance. So he's going to be dealing 50% extra damage on my Volt Switch, and I didn't expect it to do that much damage, but it did about 30 or 40%, which is going to help this burn get rid of him faster. In comes another Intimidate. So he's back down to neutral damage Dragonite, but super fast. And here I know I can live any one hit and take him out with a Stone Edge, and I'll be finally rid of this damn Dragonite. But unfortunately the Stone Edge misses, which means we're going to have to play footsies a little bit longer until the burn just gets rid of him. This Pokemon is so annoying to deal with. I did not want to U-turn because I knew he would be faster and just kill me, so I went into Sylveon expecting another Dragon Claw, but the plays were made, and this extreme speed is going to kill Sylveon. Got a critical hit. I'm not sure if that mattered because Sylveon does not have that high of defense, but at the same time, I don't know if he could have just one-shot me from neutral damage like that with an 80 power neutral damage non-stab move. You're gonna go into Ferrothorn here after getting another Intimidate off, and I know he'll definitely die after the burn this turn, so I could possibly get off a Spike, but I was really fearing the Fire Punch, so I decided to Protect, and it wound up paying off for me because he did have Fire Punch, and then he's gonna go down to the burn. So this Pokemon, this Crisis, successfully averted that Dragonite could have done a ton of damage to my team if I did not kite him so well. So he sends in Weezing, and I assume he's trying to bait out my Heatran because last time I switched Heatran in on Weezing. So instead, since I've got another Pokemon that can also wall Weezing, I'm going to go into that. And turns out I was completely correct. I think he had Focus Blast probably, and he wanted to take care of my Heatran with that double switch, but it didn't work out for him because I went into Rotom, which he's not going to do anything to Rotom, especially after a light screen. Goes back into Goodra, maybe expecting a Volt Switch on my part, but that's not what I give him. In comes the light screen, and now Goodra can't do anything. Expecting he's probably going to switch out, I just Volt Switch. and he doesn't switch out, but that's okay. Because I've got this Conkeldurr who's Assault Vested, and we got a Light Screen on this 0 attack Goodra, and that does like 10 damage to me. I don't know. Pretty much nothing. I thought that he would want to maybe switch into his Thundurus, because the Drain Punch definitely could have killed, and I could have gotten some of that HP back, but he did not do that. He just decided to let his Goodra die. In comes the Staraptor, and I'm not really worried about this at all, because I've got this Ferrothorn here to take his Brave Bird and deal even more recoil than he already is going to be taking. But unfortunately it does about 70% damage, and I was really surprised by that. So now I'm really thinking that he's probably Choice Banded, but I'm still not completely sure, because I know Staraptor is a powerhouse. I think that he might want to switch, expect me to protect, so instead I'm going to Leech Seed here. And if he did kill me, it wouldn't be that big of a deal, really, because at least he would take a ton of recoil and I could just revenge it with something. But he did switch, giving me a little bit of health back in return. And that's really nice. I thought he would just want to Volt Switch, since he was not going to be able to do much to this Ferrothorn. But he decided to stay in and go for the taunt, which I guess is a pretty good play. Nevertheless, I get a ton of HP back between leftovers and Leech Seed. And now I go into my Landorus, and he expected the switch, it looks like, so he goes for a second taunt, which is kind of annoying because I really would have liked to have been able to set up my Stealth Rocks right now. But at least I'm getting a ton of health back from Leech Seed. So I'm back up to about 50% on my Landorus, just under. And I'm going to switch out, fearing the HP Ice, into Heatran, who's obviously going to eat that up. I believe he actually gets a critical hit. Yeah, and it still did about only 17 damage. And I know he's probably going to want to stay in and Focus Blast me, but what he does not understand is that I have Choice Scarf on Heatran to deal with situations like this. He can pick up a lot of easy kills just off of having the information advantage over my opponent. And then he switches in Staraptor, and I'm really confused. At that point, I'm thinking that he may have been Choice Scarf, because I can't think of any other reason to switch Staraptor in on Heatran after I just revealed my Choice Scarf. So I'm going to play it safe, and he's going to get the kill on Ferrothorn. It was a critical hit, and I'm not sure if it mattered because I was at pretty good health right there. Either way, I'm not that worried about it because that extra bit of recoil is going to put him in KO range for my Mach Punch, which is really obvious, which is why I'm switching into Weezing. But I really have no reason to try and overpredict this late in the game when I've got such a big Pokemon advantage over my opponent. And so here, I really do not want this Staraptor to be able to come back in, because if he is Choice Scarfed, he can just run a train through my team with close combats and possibly bring it back for Ian. And it's not what I want to happen, so I'm going to switch into Landmaster just to throw up my Stealth Rocks and prevent him from doing anything more with that Staraptor. He winds up pulling the Verlicify strats with his stockpile, which is going to make this Weezing incredibly annoying to get rid of. But at the same time, he doesn't pose any offensive pressure to my team. And I still got Heatran chilling out, who he can literally do 0% damage to, because Flamethrower is, I'm immune to both his moves, to poison and fire. Although he still has a fourth move that he hasn't revealed yet, which could be problematic if it's like, what's that called? Oh man, I'm drawing a blank right now. Pain Split is what I'm thinking of. But I'm gonna go into Rotom here just to get a burn off and deal a little bit of damage over time to make this a lot more manageable of a Pokemon. And he's gonna reveal his last move is also Will-O-Wisp. And normally he would be able to outstall me in this position at +3 defenses. But I've got an extreme Pokemon advantage over him. I think I've got about 3 or 4 Pokemon left at this point. I'm not really certain. He's gonna hit me up with a Clear Smog for a measly amount of damage through the light screen. Both gonna take residual damage, yada yada. And now I want to get rid of this, I want to get rid of, it's not leftovers, his Black Sludge. So I'm going to Volt Switch for a little bit of damage and try to knock off his Black Sludge with my Conkeldurr so that this will not take as much time to stall out. It's going to Flamethrower, and it's not going to do any damage to me. But at this point, Ian pretty much knows the match is over, so he just forfeits. And that was a pretty good match. I was really scared for a while trying to play around that Dragonite, but everything worked out in the end. So, good game, Ian. Comment, like, subscribe, and all that, and peace out.